Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg with you, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. It is just the two of us tonight. We are down Stephanie Burke and we are down the silent assassin Matt Costa, which is really, the heart and soul of the entire show to be down him.
Yeah, our technical guy.
So we're basically pressing buttons and, we don't know what we're doing. But that's all right. We'll find our way through the show because we missed last week. Last week we came in. I came from wrestling. You were out at something.
I was out in the field.
Stephanie was out in an event during the day, but she came here to meet me for the start of the show. We came in basically just looking to get ready to go. One of the cameras was down. All week long, I didn't have time to fix it and to replace it. I just got to it before the show started tonight. Basically just had to take an extra camera that I had and throw it in there so we'd be able to at least have some sort of video representation. But we'll fight our way through it.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to complain. I don't mean to complain, but I'm exhausted.
No, I can respect that.
I've been covering for another position here at the station during the week, plus doing my own job. So I've been working, 12 to 15 hours every day.
Oh.
I've been sleeping 3 hours every night, and it catches up on me. Like today, I slept the entire day. I woke up at about 6 a.m. to let the dog out, maybe 5:30. And then, because now she's used to waking up earlier, because I've been waking up earlier now for almost a month. So I let her out. She comes back in. I go back to sleep, wake up at 10. By 12:30, I was asleep on the couch again. Didn't wake up till 6. Wow. So I think I had some sleeping I had to catch up on.
Technically, isn't that more like passed out?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. I think that it's more of a matter of, just eventually your body says, nope, you're done. We're not going any further with this. So that's where we're at right now. But we are here to talk about the paranormal, as we are each and every Saturday night. And tonight, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of a challenge with some of the video stuff, but we will have a Week in Weird for you later on. Those of you watching on the live video, you'll hear the Week in Weird, but in order to see it, you'll have to go back and watch the edited version later. Or you can just watch the Week in Weird on its own. We'll upload that directly to the Spooky South Coast YouTube channel. But I wanted to throw something out on the table, which we'll discuss a little bit later on, and that is the responsibility of the paranormal world. And we can look at that from being, ghost researchers, UFO researchers, Bigfoot, whatever it is that you look into, whatever weird thing you're into researching, and it can be one thing, it can be all of it. But whatever it is, the responsibility that you have to history and to facts. Because I think that we have gotten into a habit now of saying, well, according to legend, legend has it, the way the story goes, when we start putting all of those caveats into those qualifiers into the discussion, what we're doing is we're changing the history to fit the narrative that we're trying to create from the paranormal. So I want to discuss that and talk about, and I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. We'll be able to kind of talk it out, and we're able to say, yes, maybe the paranormal activity supersedes the history, because maybe we're just making it connected in our minds.
What's that old adage? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Right. What I like to call the Liberty Valance effect. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And that's what we do in the paranormal world. But one of the things that I find that happens more often than not is we're pushing aside the history because it doesn't fit the narrative that the paranormal research has created. And I usually get upset about that. But now I wonder if maybe in some cases that's warranted, because maybe the two are completely separate. We have a tendency to think that if we go to a house where George Washington once stayed, which is every
Yeah.
bed and breakfast across New England.
Yep.
But if we think George Washington slept here,
There.
it was built in 1972. It doesn't matter. But, the more that we go through all of that and we hear that, then you go to the place and it has paranormal activity. Well, who says that it has to be George Washington? We just make these leaps in logic. And what happens is the data comes back from the investigation. We're using EchoVox, and we're like, what's your name? And it says George Washington.
Yeah.
Then we're like, oh, well, we're definitely talking to George Washington. Why would you have reason to? Out of all the places that he stayed, why would he choose to be there? And, we can even expand it out to be like, well, maybe when he's passed away and George Washington can be anywhere and everywhere all at the same time. We don't know the nature of how ghosts work, but, we can get into all of those things as well.
Well, what about if you don't really know what the true history is? There are plenty of things that we really don't know.
And there's plenty of places that we have written the history based on the paranormal research, which is even worse, I think, because
there's nothing to back it up.
Right. You can go there and get the same thing again and again and again and again. It doesn't mean that it's actually the correct stuff that happened. I mean, the ghost can call us directly and try and tell us the answers. You just tell them to call us back at 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We'll take your calls throughout the show on this topic. But I think that it's something that it's worth a discussion. And as I said, there's not going to be a right answer. There's not going to be a wrong answer. We're kind of just talking our way through this and seeing where it leads. The worst thing that we can do in terms of this discussion is take a hardline stance one way or the other.
Right.
Because, first of all, we're already saying, when it comes to history, we're already kind of taking somebody's word for it. We don't know that necessarily. Let me just use this as an example, okay? There have been paranormal television shows who have gone to locations, and I'm not saying any particular show because I think it's probably happened to all of them. As much as the people behind the scenes try and research everything and get all the information and get all the right stuff that they can ahead of time, I'm sure every paranormal television show that goes out and investigates these different locations has been quote unquote taken by somebody. Where they get told this great story and they do the research and everything seems to come back to, this being true, but in the end, it's not true. For example, it's happened to us. We've seen it happen with, and again, it doesn't mean the story isn't true. And by the way, we have to talk about Profile Rock. Don't let me forget to talk about that.
I won't.
But if you look at the story of the ledge, the Assonet Ledge, we went into that, and I've told this story before, so I apologize if those of you listening have heard of this before. But when we started doing this show and we started going out and sharing some of the stories of this area, we would tell the story of the Lady of the Ledge. And the story, the history.
Well, the folklore.
Like let's start this off by saying you have seen the Lady of the Ledge.
I have, and I'm not alone. Several other, dozens of other people have.
Right. This is something that's been reported by numerous people for many years, but we're not just sharing a ghost story that we've heard. Matt Moniz had a personal experience.
Not knowing the legend.
So when we're sharing this story, we have some factual basis to share this story. So we've told this story for a while. It was the first couple of years of doing Spooky South Coast, but we've talked about it here on the show, and we've covered the Bridgewater Triangle, and we've gone out there and filmed videos and gone out there and tried to see if we could have it happen again and all these things. And so we go out and we give a lecture to the Freetown Historical Society. They asked us to come and give a presentation. We get up there, and as part of the presentation, we're telling the story of the Lady of the Ledge. And Matt Moniz is sharing his own personal experiences that he's had. And somebody stands up in the audience afterwards and says, that's a cute story, except for one thing. That ledge exists because it was a quarry that was dug out in the early 1900s. So it wasn't...
Late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah.
I thought he said it was like the 1920s or around that area.
I think that's when it closed.
But at some point,
Yeah.
they turned. There was a ledge there, but it wasn't anything like it is now. They dug that all out and turned it into a quarry, and so he's like, there probably wasn't any truth to the legend of there being a Native American princess who was upset because her father, the chief, wouldn't let her, fall in love, wouldn't let her be in love with the white man that she had fallen in love with, and so because she couldn't be with him, she threw herself off the ledge. And that's why she's seen roaming the top of it.
Right.
And there's variations on the story.
Yep. There's variations on that same story around the country. That's a comment, but
Right, but there's even variations on the Freetown version.
Right, but that was the story I was told. That was the legends shared to me by the locals that brought me up there. Mm-hmm. So I was like,
I've since heard that because we talk about how people that go to that ledge and stand there and look over the ledge, you have this overwhelming feeling to jump. There's this moroseness that will come over you, this sadness, and you'll feel like you want to jump off the ledge, and that's why there's probably so many people that do.
Have reported that, yeah.
And so I know there's people that I know and trust that are friends of ours that have said that they've I don't think he'll mind me saying Frank Grace, who is one of the happiest people that I know, but he said that when he has stood there and stood at that edge, he's felt like something is almost pulling him from his stomach. Like pulling him to jump. And so one of those versions of the story that I heard is that that's actually the curse of the Lady of the Ledge, because the white man that she was in love with was supposed to go there and kill himself too, and didn't show. And so she felt betrayed by that. So now everybody that goes there, she wants them to go with her and join her. So
now we know there's been a number of deaths. There's usually one there every year.
Yeah, that's it, and that goes without saying that there's
that's happened for decades.
But now the question is, so we get up there and we tell the story, and the person says, that was a quarry that was dug out, so it probably wouldn't have been something a Native American would have been able to throw themselves to their death from during that time, during that era. So then the story kind of becomes moot. The legend becomes moot, but the feelings that people have when they're up there and the experiences and the sightings that they have, they don't change.
Right.
Those are still happening. So what does that mean then if the experience of the paranormal phenomena that takes place there doesn't match up with the history? It doesn't mean that it's null and void. It doesn't mean that, you didn't see what you saw and that Frank didn't feel what he felt and that everybody else that's gone up there and had similar experiences didn't experience what they experienced. So were we having experiences built off a flawed legend? Well, that doesn't work in your case because you didn't hear the legend until after you had your experience.
Right.
So it's hard to say that is what happens, that people are going up there because they've heard this story and then they have a confirmation bias going into it where they say, well, if I had something weird up there, it must have been the Lady of the Ledge because that's who's up there. It's almost like it's separate, different but same, as Mr. Miyagi would say. It's almost like the story can only exist because of the paranormal phenomena, but the story also can exist outside of the actual truth.
Yeah, well, like I said, I was up there looking for UFOs. I was not in ghost mode, so to speak. And when I saw that woman, that's what I'm going to call her because that's what it looked like to me for all intents and purposes, was a woman standing in a light-colored dress at the edge of the precipice. When I turned around and said, we're not alone, I turned back and she was gone. I seriously thought, I just saw, a woman jump to her death here. Mm-hmm. So I went running over to the ledge, looked down, nothing. And that's, like I said, when those friends of mine started laughing. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell are they laughing about? And they said, no, that's the Lady of the Ledge. Oh, my God, you got to see her. And that's when they related the story. And this is something that they grew up with. And I know Brightman has shared the same legend with you. He's probably heard the same. I remember him saying roughly the same story. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we made this up. This is
Sure.
This is folklore that's been there for, longer than we've been alive.
And you're wearing the Bridgewater Triangle documentary T-shirt. When they were researching that film, they had numerous people that were telling them that they had encountered that. And how many years have we talked about it here on the air that other people have told us that they've had those experiences? But if it can't be true, how is it?
Well, it may not necessarily be an Indian maiden, but it may be, somebody in more modern times.
It could be somebody that jumped from there after it became a quarry.
Yeah.
But the story has still sprung up around it because the story is better than the actual truth, probably.
Well, what I saw it didn't look like an Indian maiden in a buckskin. It looked like a woman. The best way I could describe her dress, her attire, looked mid-40s. Looked like it was late 30s, early 40s type of dress. That kind of...
But there are other people who have sworn that they've seen an Indian princess up there.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of what we're talking about, of where the legend and the fact kind of, they can intersect, and that's what we really want to have happen in what it is that we do. But more often than not, too, they can also diverge. And if they diverge, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to throw it away. That's what I think a lot of people will do that. They'll say, well, that doesn't fit the history. So it must be, something that we're not really going to focus on or pay attention to. But that's because you're only going with one history. Every location has different paths of its history. Every place that you go to investigate has multiple threads to the narrative. So if you go and investigate, for example, the Lizzie Borden house.
Okay.
You're making the assumption when you go there that the activity that you will encounter will be based off the Lizzie Borden story. And probably it makes the most sense because paranormally speaking, it's the most powerful thing that has happened there. So if something's going to leave its imprint, it would be that.
What part of the whole Borden story? What about, are we talking what happened with Ledwig Borden as well?
We could be
and
talking,
Eliza?
But the things that go on could have happened from the day the house was built to the days before there was a house standing there to
that's what I'm saying.
everything that's
back
going
to
up today.
Ledwig and Eliza, where Eliza killed her children and where the property is with the well. The house was built afterwards.
Right. But I think that the Borden house was there at that point, but I think that it was somebody else living in it.
But yes,
it's where the print shop was, which is like where the it's kind of like there's that little bthere space and then there's the barber shop, so that's what we're talking about. But the fact is there was people that lived there before the Bordens. Mm-hmm. And there was people that might have lived on that land before. I mean, I haven't done the far back research to what was there before that current house, it says it right on the front of the house. Was it 1874?
Yeah.
That house was built?
Yeah, somewhere.
It says it right on the front, and I can't remember the date. But, what was there before that? And what was there before that? And what was there? Because we know that the Native Americans didn't go into that area when it was part of the Freetown State Forest, even though they could have gone in there because it would have been a beautiful place to go, Fall River, if you are a Native American, because what a place to go. You've got the Taunton River right there. Yeah. You've got this great spot where you could fish and where you could, and I'm assuming, if I had to make an assumption, I don't know the geology of the area and what's changed over time, but I'm assuming that was a pretty narrow crossing. Because if you look underneath the Braga Bridge, there's not a lot of river.
No. That
the bridge spans over. It spans over a great deal of land.
Right. Well, that's the reason why they built it where they did, was one of the narrowest points across.
So that would have been a great spot if you're a Native American to get across the Taunton River, because you don't have to go as far. Like, you've got a pretty narrow mouth there to get across. So that would have been a place that you would think that they would frequent, but they didn't. They stayed away from that area because there was something there that they felt was, or at least so the legend has it, and you'll hear that quite a bit tonight. So the legend has it, that was a place that had a lot of darkness and negativity that they didn't want anything to do with. So, we're talking about a history that could go back all that far. So then we're making the assumption that when we go there, that it's the Bordens that we're interacting with, when it could very well not be, because there's such a history there that could be leading to what goes on. And then we can kind of get into, well, maybe whatever's there says it's the Boydens when it's not and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is we look for the easy answer, I think.
Yeah.
Which, Occam's razor in some cases, but also in other cases, it could be that we are just applying what we want to be the story. So we can talk about all that. 508-996-0500. Let's see if this caller's been patiently hanging on. Good. No, hold on. I'm going to put this one up. Hello. Good evening. How you doing?
I just wanted to get to you first. I hope I don't hijack your show because I wanted to give you an update.
Oh, well, we had people in our YouTube chat room hoping you would call in with an update.
Okay. The update is earlier in the week. I found out, as my luck would have it, my lucky number happens to be 2. I was told by a psychic. So I don't know if you remember the prizes, but I won the second place prize in that guaranteed sweepstakes.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know if you remember what it was, but I'll refresh your memory. $220 million plus a C-Class Mercedes. What date I'm going to receive it, I don't know. I spoke with the gentleman from the Justice Department today. Over the past week, he had been trying to locate the third place winner, which I don't think he located. Which, when he called me today, he was going to originally send me $250 to cover taxes and registration on the sweepstakes. But he told me now he's going to be sending me a debit card with a PIN. So I think I might have won the additional $105 million that they couldn't locate. So I could be looking at $325 million plus the Mercedes.
It just seems like there's a lot of hoop jumping to be done here to get this money.
There's a lot of paperwork because they have to deal with the Internal Revenue. They have to deal with the Federal Trade Commission. They have to deal with and this guy is doing it step by step, and he's making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And I told him to take his time anyway because I have been ripped off by the FBI and Homeland Security for the past 3 years. So if I have to wait another week or another 2 weeks, it's not going to put me out.
Let's just take a step back to the beginning of this. Normally when people win Publishers Clearinghouse, they want to show up at your house with a camera crew and a big giant check.
Well, that's if you pick the public delivery. I did not choose the public delivery. I chose a private delivery where they would come to my house privately. No news media would be notified. And the vehicle that would be delivered would be on a plain flatbed, which is the way they're going to do it. They're going to come to my house. There's going to be no media hoopla. They're going to come. In fact, the gentleman representing the Justice Department is also going to accompany the delivery. And what I'm going to do, since I love surprises and to surprise people, the day of the delivery, I will make an appearance at WBSM, and there will be a great celebration there.
Well, listen, we're looking forward to it. I just hope that when it happens, we'll know. I guess when we see the Mercedes pull up, we'll know it's you.
Oh no, I won't be coming in a Mercedes because everybody knows that I'm getting a Mercedes. I'm going to be coming in something different.
I just think it's weird that they're giving you $300 million and they still feel the need to give you a Mercedes, too, at the same time.
Well, see, I guess that's part of the package.
So just it's like a sponsorship from Mercedes, kind of?
It might be, because just like the guy that won the first place, he's getting $500 million plus a Mercedes C-Class. So...
it seems like a lot of money for Publishers Clearinghouse to be able to give away. People just don't read magazines anymore.
Well, you see, the thing of it is, myself and the other 2 people have been burned by the FBI and it started, I guess, with them with notification from Publishers Clearinghouse. So I think Publishers Clearinghouse wanted to kind of like reimburse all of our trouble.
So if you've had all this problem with government agencies, just to be clear, so we put this out there, none of this money is coming from those agencies. So it's not American taxpayer money that's being awarded to you.
No.
It's all from Publishers. So this mistake, this whole hoopla that's been going on, is costing Publishers Clearinghouse essentially $1 billion.
I would say so.
Between yourself and the other winners, yeah, I would.
Right, and like I say, I don't know how they got the money, but you see, they're initiating a thing right now too, where they're going their thing with the because they advertise on TV, something like $25,000 a month for life or something. Because I've seen that advertisement on TV, and I think that one's like with a public delivery. But you can probably, if you want, you can get that and of course you got to enter to win. So somehow they're getting money.
See, I don't even know. I don't know why they would have the option of a private delivery, because for them, the whole reason they're giving away the money is for the promotional aspect of doing so.
Well, you know why they have a private delivery? Because as soon as you get that money, everybody knows who you are if you go public.
Right, but the reason they're giving you the money is for the promotion for themselves.
Yeah, but you see, myself, I don't want everybody to know, to see my face, because I have a lot of friends that have also, they haven't really won big sweepstakes, but they've been in the public eye and they've been shafted even more than I have been by the FBI and Homeland Security over the past 3 years. They have been harassed and property vandalized and other things over the past 10 or 15 years, and they're still being harassed today. And they've even had their identity stolen and everything else.
Well, have you ever gone to the lottery's website, the Mass Lottery website?
No, I'm not a very computer literate. In fact, I got a computer approximately a year or so ago, and all I do when I go on there, even though I have an email, I don't even check my email. All I do is I look at real estate that's up for sale, and I want to thank you for the tip on that island. That looks like a possibility.
Oh, yeah, that'll certainly keep people from knocking on your door.
Oh, absolutely. Well, unless they come by boat.
Right, and then you'll know they're coming.
Yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, like I say, I didn't want to, I hope I didn't hijack your show.
No, people were asking for an update, so I'm glad that you called in.
Okay, and I also want to commend you for the work you've done, because I've been listening to BSM for the past couple of months where Taylor has left and everything, and maybe I could put up with the hours if I was maybe 20 or 30 years younger. But to do it now, I don't even think I'd want to try.
Yeah, that's how I feel. If I was 20 years younger, I'd feel better about it too. But
yeah. Okay, well, like I say, I commend you for all your hard work.
Thank you for that.
And I always commend BSM for their honesty in reporting.
Just remember that when you buy Town Square Media, just remember my hard work.
Oh, you know, Tim, I won't have to buy it because I'm going to have lawsuits with different people there, and in the lawsuit is going to be Town Square Media, so I won't even have to buy it.
Well,
it'll be through a lawsuit.
Let's leave it at that. I don't want to get into trouble with my company here, with my employer. So we'll just leave it there.
Well, you won't, because if I win, which I should, you won't have to worry about a thing.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, Tim, you guys have a great night.
You as well.
And like I say, I hope I didn't steal your show.
Nope, not at all.
Okay, you have a good one now.
You too. Take
Bye-bye.
care. And yeah, no, he butts heads with some of the other hosts here, and you know, I tell them all the time, like, hey, you know,
different people have different.
Yeah,
you know,
the audience wants to hear. They want an update on it. You know, so I give our audience what they want to hear. And speaking of what they want to hear, I think Moniz, we didn't have a show last week. You were out in the field both last weekend, last Saturday and Friday night.
Correct.
You guys were working on that BFRO event.
Correct.
First of all, before we get into all of the nuts and bolts of what happened, just how'd the events go?
It went well. There were 8 people that came and signed up for it. We had them going around to various locations in the Bridgewater Triangle. You know, everywhere from Bridgewater, Freetown State Forest, you know, behind the dog track. We ended up doing a couple of nights out at Betty's Neck in Lakeville.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there was a really good Class A sighting there in 2014. And I was able to obtain special permission from the police department and the town to be able to be out there after dark. doing what we were doing.
So Ticket Tony didn't harass you at all, is what you're saying?
Basically.
Everybody around this area knows Ticket Tony.
Yeah. So, well, basically, thank you, Lori, who is the night manager at the police department. I was able to inform her what we were doing, and we dropped off some BFRO stickers and various other things and let them know that we're going to be out there doing some recording and things of that nature. But we were able to get out there. If you've ever been out there, beautiful location out between Long Pond and trying to remember that. I was
Assawamsett Pond.
Assawamsett. Yeah,
right.
I'm trying
so
to.
if you're going through if you're driving down Route 18 through Lakeville heading toward New Bedford, if you're heading toward Quitticus area.
Yeah, it'd be on your left.
It would actually be no. If you're coming from New Bedford, it would be on your left.
Oh, I'm
if
thinking
you're coming from
yeah.
If you're coming from Lakeville heading toward New Bedford, it's that body of water on your right.
Yeah.
So basically, the road, Route 18, bisects these two ponds.
And beautiful location. And we were out there Friday night, and it was getting towards the end of the evening. And it was kind of funny because we're listening for wood knocks and, whatever hoots and hollers we could hear, using the thermals to scan out in the field in the wood line, seeing, the deer feed out there. And it's a big open sky over this field. And excuse me. One of the guys was looking up and is like, whoa, what? And he points up in the sky, and up in the Big Dipper, right in the bowl, basically, of the Big Dipper, this big bright flash. It lit up, brighter than landing lights, and then slowly dimmed out. And we're like, whoa, that was weird. And you could barely see this faint light slowly move, and then it lit up again, moved, zigzagged in another location, lit up again. And after about a third or fourth, really bright power up type of thing that we're looking at, we realized that's not a helicopter. That's not a plane. It's definitely not a satellite, because satellites take approximately 90 seconds to move from horizon to horizon, and they travel in a linear arc. So this thing's moving around. It basically flashed or lit up about 5 separate times inside the bowl of the Big Dipper at various locations.
So it was following a zigzaggy type path. So would it zig to one spot, stop, pulsate, zig to another, stop, pulsate?
Yep, basically. And it wasn't straight, like going here and following a path. It reversed it back on its path, went above it, below it, around it, and it followed basically a roughly east to west. I mean, west to east trajectory, but it wasn't in a straight line. And we just light up, and we were watching it for about 5 minutes. A true quote unquote UFO, a light that we could not identify what it was. We know it wasn't lanterns. It definitely wasn't any form of aircraft because of its extremely high altitude. It wasn't a satellite because, like I said, satellites take 90 seconds, and we were watching this thing for at least 5 minutes. And it slowly just you could see it when it lit up, and after it faded down, you could still see it, and it moved, and it'd light up again, move, light up again. Sometimes it would move back and forth and then light up again. We had 8 trained observers. One of them was a former Marine aviator. It's like, I'm trained to look at all of this stuff. That isn't anything I know of.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we had several other former MIL observing it, and a couple of other guys that are definitely trained observers, and we all agreed, that's not a satellite. That's not we rolled out everything we could man-made, and we definitely know that it was up there.
Any reports of anybody else reporting the same thing?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I ran into somebody else the following day. I was starting to explain, and she was talking about what her brother was watching at the same exact time as in the sky. So we got an independent corroboration.
I'm just
okay.
Just going to take a look and see if anything on the National UFO Reporting Center, if there's something similar, Which, of course, you would think you would have put your report up there.
No, I was there. But it was one of those things that, I may eventually put it back in. I got to get a couple of the other guys that were out there. I'm waiting for their emails back before I make any type of official report. Because I don't want to put, people's names out there without permission.
So just taking a look here, what would be the date on that if we knocked it back last Friday? So we're talking about the
15th?
21 minus 7, 14th?
14th, 15th.
So the 14th. So we don't have anything that I can see here for the 14th, but we have one from the 8th from New Bedford. It lasted about 4 to 5 seconds. I observed a single fairly large bluish oval pill-shaped object with a lighter bluish tint halo surrounding it. Well, I can tell you that was probably... So the 8th would have been what day of the week? Was that a Saturday? Sunday?
Yeah, I was just trying to look up on the calendar.
Because on the 8th, we did a show here, and I left the studio, and when I looked up over the 99, I could see Jupiter. Jupiter, Saturn. Which one's?
Well, both of them are relatively close.
Yeah, they're both super close right now, but one of them is especially brighter.
That would be Jupiter. You'd be able to see Jupiter's
if I'm looking
moons.
up over the sky, Jupiter would be here and Saturn would be here, right?
Yes.
So it was Jupiter that I was looking at, yeah, because I pull out my sky map app on my phone, and it shows you where they all are, and it was super bright, and it had that bluish tint. So I'm wondering if maybe that's what that report was from that person, because it does look so. When you walk out there, it's the first thing you notice. It's that bright. I think it's starting to be a little bit dimmer now, but we have about 6 minutes left in the hour, and we have a phone call, so let's take that. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast.
What's shaking, Playboy? How you
Hey,
doing?
what's going on, Lamone?
Much, you look so different. I thought you were the Bizarro Tim.
No. I do this every summer.
Oh, really? Oh, the summer started on the 21st. So, yeah. Now, 2 days ago, before the summer started, it was like 106 degrees. Today it's 89 degrees here in Vegas. What's up with that?
No, that's perfect. Who wants?
Yeah, exactly. For real. So, I was thinking, I tried to call last week. I tried to get through, but you didn't. I guess it wasn't the show.
Yeah, we ended up having to skip it with some technical problems.
Okay, and so did you see what I said about Stephanie? She must be stuck on the Isle of Themyscira.
Actually, she's actually in Salem tonight with Ty Gowan of Haunt Me. They were up in Salem for something that Stephanie really can't talk about yet, but I think she will in the future.
Okay, but she's gone. It seems like Elian Gonzalez spends more time in town than she does.
Oh wow.
So am I going old school?
Yeah. That was a kind of a random reference there.
Exactly. And one thing I wanted to ask all your listeners and everything, and Mr. Matt that's sitting over there quiet as a church mouse, when was last time you guys had Tutti Frutti ice cream?
Oh, God.
I don't know if I've ever had Tutti Frutti ice cream.
The 80s.
Mine was 1977. I remember going with my mother, and there was this girl that, have you ever heard of Mary Vincent? That'd be a person that would be good for you to look at her story. She went through a lot of stuff, and she's still alive. I don't want to say much about it because I want you to look at it, but my mother took us both to go get ice cream. That was the first and only time I ever had a Tutti Frutti, double scoops, 2 scoops for 25 cents. And so from the local thrifty store here in Las Vegas. Also, there's another thing.
Lamone, I don't think I've ever gone to an ice cream shop and seen Tutti Frutti on the flavor list.
Well, it's been a long time. It's been a very long time. And it's like, am I talking about old school, like Tutti Frutti? Like I said, so we did Child's Play on Thursday. It was really good. Personally, I think it has a lot more. It's not as like evil, kind of like, but it's more evil because it's spread easier. I don't want to say much about it, but it's hard to find a sequel, let alone a remake that's better than the first one.
Right.
I mean, only sequel I think like a handful of sequels that are better than the first one, like Pet Detective 2. That one that was better than the first one.
Oh, Ace Ventura.
Yeah,
the rhino scene alone, sure.
Oh yeah, that was off the chain. And so, to watch Shooty the Biters. Yeah, but that was off the hook. But also Terminator 2, that was better
Yep,
than the first
that's
one.
I would say Godfather 2. Usually people will say is better.
That of opinion, that's my opinion too. Yeah,
Aliens.
And also what about
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead? I don't know. What about Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance?
I think that I don't know. I think I still like the first one the best, but it was just different because he
The
was
second
not
one
tied to
was
one
better,
building.
better than all the other ones.
Well,
The
okay.
first one, I think that's kind of, the first one is dealing with Christmas. Love Christmas. Like I said, and it's
Right.
like,
Die Hard
I
is a
think
Christmas movie.
Yes.
it is a Christmas film. It is a Christmas movie. A lot of people don't think of it like that until they look at it. So that black guy was correct again. And so see the BFRO, I thought that's talking about afros, black people,
No,
I never
it's not
well, I better make sure I call in today.
All right, Lamone. I think we're gonna have to let you go because we only got a minute left here before the news. But thank you for checking in.
Are you doing Weekend World today? Are we doing that
We
thing?
do have a Weekend Weird coming up in the next hour. We'll be playing that in the next hour. I don't think we'll be able to do the video, but we'll add that in later.
Oh, hell's bells. So I wanted to, like I said, I didn't get to talk to you about it last week, but I wanted to find out about some of your callers or some of your clan that I wanted to do something nice for and things like that. Maybe send them posters or something nice like that, something special for them.
Sure, we'll come up with something. All right, thank you for the call. I got to let you go because we're on the clock is there. Take it easy. But he said bye to Mr. Apnea there. I don't know if you caught that, Mr. Apnea, in the chat room before I had to pot him down. So we are up against the news break here. We will take a break for the news. When we come back on the other side, we'll have the Weekend Weird for you, of course, but we're also going to talk about what happened with Profile Rock, and that will kind of lend into the bigger story about the legend versus the truth that we're talking about tonight. We'll take your calls on that as well. 508-996-0500. 877-996-1420 if you want to call in and chime in. We'll be back with more Spooky South Coast in just a bit.
New Bedford's News Talk Station 1420 WBSM New Bedford, streaming worldwide on the WBSM app and on WBSM.com.
you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. Both the silent assassin Matt Costa and Stephanie Burke off tonight, but we are here to talk with you about the paranormal. We've been talking about some different topics over the course of the first hour, but the main thing that we're discussing tonight is how history and haunts, or history and any kind of paranormal activity, sometimes they jibe, sometimes they don't. And does that make a difference? And we'll talk about one of those things coming up in just a few moments, because we had a tragic local story that happened this week. If anybody out there is familiar with this area and familiar with the Bridgewater Triangle, if you've seen the Bridgewater Triangle documentary, you will definitely be familiar with the name Profile Rock. And sad to say, Profile Rock is no more. There's no more profile in the rock after what happened this week. So we'll get into all of that. If you want to check out the story, we have it up at WBSM.com. You can see the story that I wrote a few days ago. But it's a very tragic loss for those of us here in the area to lose something that is part of our, part of the South Coast's identity. And something that actually means probably more to the Wampanoags of the area too, which we'll get into kind of all of that, all the history of that. But what we'll do now is Matt Bleistein has a new Week in Weird for us. And as I said earlier, without Matt Costa here, I'm a little bit technically challenged to be able to bring the video from the Week in Weird to the live stream, but we'll add it into the video later on, and we'll put it up separately on the Spooky South Coast YouTube channel as well. So you'll still be able to see it later. Just won't be able to run it for you live, but that doesn't mean that we can't have you hear it. So we'll do that right now. We will go to the Week in Weird with Matt Bleistein.
In a world where the paranormal is just a breath away, we're spanning the globe to bring you the best in paranormal news. This is the Week in Weird. Hello, and welcome back to the Week in Weird. Our first story is about Dracula's balls, or at least his cannonballs. A team of archaeologists in Bulgaria have discovered ancient cannonballs they believe belonged to Vlad the Impaler. The stone cannonballs were found in the ruins of the Jestova fortress, located in the town of Svistov near the border of Romania. Vlad's army attacked the fortress in 1461 when it was held by the Ottoman Turks, and researchers are all but certain that the cannonballs belonged to him. It turns out that Vlad's balls are smaller than you might expect. They would have been fired via a culverin, which was a precursor to the musket, rather than from an actual cannon. Vlad the Impaler is, of course, famous for being ruthless in his conquests and often impaled his enemies on a stake. Tales of his cruel methods of torture spread throughout Europe and eventually inspired Bram Stoker to write his famous vampire novel. From Amazon to Grubhub, the internet makes it so that anything you want is never more than a few clicks away. even witchcraft. Some enterprising witches in Romania have recently begun offering their services via video chat sessions as well as on Facebook Live. One such witch, Cassandra Buzea, says that how a witch communicates with her client has no bearing on the success of the spells. It's the magic itself that they conjure which produces results, regardless of how the session is carried out. The internet has allowed the witches to expand their businesses, and they're now able to perform spells for clients in other parts of Europe, Asia, and the United States. An online tarot reading will cost about $60, but for a love spell, plan on spending several $100s. And of course, they accept PayPal or your firstborn. Our last story is about a new sports craze that's sweeping across Russia. It's called competitive slapping. The rules are pretty simple. Two opponents stand inches from each other across a small table and take turns slapping each other in the face until one either quits or passes out. The championship was recently held in Krasnoyarsk, Russia, and the winner, Vasily Kamatsky, took home 30,000 rubles, or about $466, as his prize. Not to be outdone, the Russian women have also entered the sport, but with a slight twist. In the female version of the game, two women take turns slapping each other's butts until one is forced to step forward or falls over. The first ever booty slapping tournament was held last week in Moscow. The sport is sanctioned by the Moscow Sports Ministry, but there's no word yet on if booty slapping will make its way into the next Olympics. After her victory, the newly crowned booty slapping champ Anastasia Something Russian said, quote, "My ass was red and blue from the spanking that I took," which is probably how Brad Marchand and the Bruins felt after the spanking they took from the St. Louis Blues in the Stanley Cup Final. And that's it for this week's installment of The Week in Weird. I'm your host, Matt Bleistein, and I'll see you next week.
He had to do that. He had to take a shot at the Bruins. I'm going to try and adjust this back.
Gravity.
That didn't work.
Hold on.
There we go. I think we're good. Try and put Moniz back on the screen there.
If you really feel you must.
Well, I don't want to be on the screen the whole time. That's why you have to be.
Got it.
So now if I just tilt that down a little bit, move it a little closer, making adjustments on the fly. There we go. So that was The Week in Weird. Thank you, Matt Bleistein, for that. Even though you did take a shot at the Bruins, I don't care because I'm not a hockey fan. But there might be some hockey fans out there that have their feelings a little bit hurt by that. And he loves that stuff. He loves taking digs at New England sports. Why? Because he knows that we are better. It's all just Patriots jealousy. That's what it is.
If you say so.
All right. Yeah, I know. Moniz doesn't follow sports. So we do have a caller on the line. 508-996-0500 is the number. We'll take this call, then we'll get into some discussion about Profile Rock. Good evening. You are next on Spooky South Coast.
It's me, fella.
Oh, no.
I forgot to tell you.
Okay.
Well, there's two things I forgot to tell you. All right, the guy, they said that Big Poppy wasn't an intended target. Yes, he was. He was an intended target. That's to keep them from getting put to death, getting killed, because that's why they said that. And plus, we also missed out on a future guest. He just died, Bushwick Bill. Remember we talked about him?
I would have liked to have had Bushwick Bill on, but yeah, he did pass away.
And so we were talking about that, and like I said, and I had tried to send out, and try to get in touch with him before, afterwards, and when I said that I'd like to see if I could get him on as a guest, he said, sure, bring him on. And he never returned my phone calls. His son was telling me that he was like really sick.
Did anybody check to see if Steve Huff talked to him already?
You know what? I think Steve Huff doesn't really talk to black people unless they're Michael Jackson was part. He was black even though he looks like he wasn't. Like I said, but I think that's the only way to go. Somebody like that. I think Steve Huff's got problems like that. Hey, as long as he's not trying to contact me.
All
at
right,
least my phone's not publicly listed. I don't think so.
I know you still haven't accepted my Facebook request.
Oh, I haven't even got. Remember, I told you I do it. That's right. You're not the only person. I am so horrible with that. I am very bad. I got probably 400 of them.
You need to make your own fan page, Lamone. We'll get you quite the following on a fan page if you make one of those.
Well, I just will. I just think I should because, like I said, it's so hard being constipated in Sin City.
Exactly.
Living life and taking it right.
All right. You have a good night, Lamone.
And I'll give Matthew too. You're the quiet Matthew right over there, silent Matt.
Oh, he's out tonight, so.
Oh, really? Well, okay, well, that's fine.
That's why we're having video problems because I'm trying to handle it.
You know where Themyscira is, right?
Where what?
You know where Themyscira is. That's where Wonder Woman's from. When I said that about Stephanie's lost on that island, that makes a lot different. Themyscira. So like, what? No, not CoverGirl. No, Themyscira, not mascara. Okay, so.
All
I
right.
just wanted to share that with you. Take a light, everybody. And I can't watch the program. I'm trying to listen, but I can't listen because you won't come in correctly. But I'll try to listen anyways.
All right. Thank you. You have a great night.
Are you doing tomorrow? Are you up next week? Are you working days, showing time next week?
No, we should be here next week.
I mean, are you this week coming? Are you doing any Dave shows?
Any Dave shows? Oh, yes. Thursday and Friday this week, I'll be hosting Midnight in the Desert.
All right, I'll probably call you Thursday because I'll be doing, I forgot what movie it is we're doing Thursday night. It'll be at start at 10, but I'll probably call you about 9-ish or so before the movie starts and let you know what's going on. So,
sounds good to me.
You know it'll be me.
All right.
All right. Take it light, Playboy.
Take it easy.
And like I said, watch out. So like I said, Dave Ortiz, like I said, how could you not know who Big Poppy is?
All right, I gotta just pot him down. I love the fact that Lamone never takes it personally either when I have to hang up on him. But I just have to, because sometimes he gets wound up and he doesn't kind of unwind.
Well, I'm with him. I don't buy that they didn't know it was Big Poppy.
Well,
I am not a sports fan, and I loathe baseball, and even I know who he is.
But he also had his back to the person that shot him, and I would honestly say that it doesn't sit right with me that it would be a hit on David Ortiz when
For what?
For $8,000, like that was what they were.
But what would be the purpose of it?
Well, there's I don't want to get into that speculation on the air, but there's speculation that he was involved with somebody's significant other that he shouldn't be, the kind of thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I don't think anybody would try to take out one of the most beloved people in the Dominican Republic for $8,000. By the way, there was 12 people involved in this. So you divide $8,000 amongst those people, like you're going to get less than $1,000 to try to take out. I mean, I don't know I don't know if they were going to divide it, democratically or not, but you know what I mean. It just there's weird aspects about that I don't know if I buy into. So I don't know if that's Lamone calling back. So we'll just move forward with the discussion. So this past week, as we had mentioned, Profile Rock, which is in Freetown, Massachusetts, it's Freetown State Forest,
right?
And within that is what was called Profile Rock Park.
Yes.
And the name of the rock, the official name of the rock is Joshua's Mountain.
Yes.
Because originally the property was owned by a Joshua Tisdale. And so Joshua Tisdale was the first person they could trace this back to, so they named the mountain after him. There's no record of him, ever referring to that himself, but that's just kind of where the name came from, Joshua's Mountain. And they would refer to the face as the Old Man of Joshua's Mountain. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, in New Hampshire, they had a similar geological formation, natural rock formation, that looked like a face coming out of an outcropping of rock. They called it the Old Man in the Mountain. And so I think this was probably somewhat tied to that same idea, the Old Man of Joshua's Mountain. Because if you looked at this rock, there was definitely the profile looked like a person's face. If you go to, say, the Wikipedia page for Profile Rock, you'll see a 1905 postcard, an image of that postcard with the way Profile Rock originally looked.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was, and
all the spray paint.
Right. I don't know. This is another thing that we're talking about with where did the legend come from? How much of it is based in history? The way that the story has been presented over the years is that the Wampanoags revered that site because they thought that the profile in the rock was that of the great sachem chief. For those of you who don't know, Wampanoag chief is sachem, but the great sachem Massasoit. So when they looked at that profile, they saw the profile of Massasoit. So this became a very important spot for them. Now the legend has it that during King Philip's War, the generals that were in this area, so Anawan and some of the other generals that were under Metacom, or King Philip, Metacom, King Philip, whatever you want to call him, the generals working under him would climb to the top of Profile Rock and send smoke signals back to King Philip's throne on Mount Hope in Rhode Island. So they would get to this point because it was kind of one of the highest elevations that they could get to, and they would go back and forth with their smoke signals. So this was a site that was supposedly known to the Native Americans and revered by them. Now, over time, and we don't know if that's true, if they really thought that it was Massasoit, if that's something that, just became part of the legend. But over time, the face started to erode. Just natural erosion. There were, from what I understand, there were some instances of, people trying to chip pieces of it off. But for the most part, it was natural erosion that kind of changed some of the features. So it became less and less resembling of a face over the last at least 20 or 30 years. If you go to our story at WBSM.com, we have a photo from the 2008, what it looked like in 2008, and I did a side-by-side comparison shot of what happened the other day. So the story came down Wednesday morning, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday morning at about 9:22 in the morning, the Freetown police get a call to go out to Profile Rock. So they head out with the fire department, and there's park department, Mass DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, I believe. Yeah. So they're out there with some of their agents, as well as the police and the fire department and some of the park rangers, for a report of recent damage to Profile Rock. Now, by recent damage, you would think, something happened that was significant to have all those people get called out. It's beyond significant. The entire profile is gone. The entire face and the side of that rock collapsed and smashed and is now lying in a pile of rubble all around Profile Rock. And the report just said that it was recent damage. So we don't know exactly what happened. Speculation starts to abound that there was vandalism involved in this. I don't know how that could be possible, but that was what the original kind of speculation was. So I reached out to Mass DCR, and I asked them specifically if there was vandalism involved, if they think there might have been vandalism, and I did not get a straight yes or no answer to that. Now, looking at it again, and the more that I've thought about it over the last couple of days, it definitely seems like it could not have been vandalism. As much as there had been damage in recent years to that rock, we're talking about you would have to push this boulder over. You'd have to use dynamite.
Or heavy equipment.
Right, which you're not getting heavy equipment up there.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have brought something up to the rock and maybe like tied a rope around it or something and then yanked it down. But you're not going to get heavy equipment up there.
No.
Because it's a path that you're following to get up there.
Well, you would see where the equipment would have gone. If
that's true. There would have been track marks and tire marks and all that. So there's nothing going up there and doing that. Well, by the way, we don't know if there was any because they've shut down the area and they won't let anybody in. So,
point being, it's a really, really, really big rock.
So the initial speculation was, well, they would have had to dynamite it. And if they had dynamited it, then people would have known. And not necessarily, because it's kind of in a remote spot. There are some homes in the area, but we see it every day on Facebook where people are like, did anybody hear that big bang here or that big bang over there? Plus, we're at the time of year when there's fireworks. Plus, there's, people that still hunt when they're not supposed to out of season in that area.
Well, there is hunting that is done at night, in particular.
Right, but I don't think we're in any season right now because it's like
you can
everything's too young.
No, you can hunt coyote year round.
Okay,
night.
So maybe that's what's going on. But people are always asking about these big bangs, so people don't really give them a second thought necessarily sometimes. But I looked at the photos. I didn't see any evidence of any blast damage. But I still asked DCR pointedly for the news story, can you rule out that it was man-made damage? And they wouldn't answer that question. So the only thing that they would tell me is that they may be calling in specialized geologists to try to figure out what happened if they felt like their report wasn't conclusive. So the bottom line, though, is no matter what happened, the face in Profile Rock is gone. There is no more profile in Profile Rock. So for any of you who had the chance to actually see it, consider yourself fortunate.
You guys from the BFRO were out there Friday and Saturday during the day. And
the week before?
No, this last week.
No, this is Saturday. You mean so the week before it happened?
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Yeah. So they were fortunate enough to just get out there just in time. So this is something that the South Coast area is known for. This is something that brings in tourists from other places. And this is something that meant something to people, not just in the paranormal community, but outside of it too. But, it also meant something to the paranormal community. This was a place where we talk about Bigfoot. There was a lot of Bigfoot sightings that have happened in that area.
Mm-hmm.
There's been, a lot of Native American spirits seen in that area. And that would make sense if they did revere that rock as being Massasoit. Some of the sightings are that Massasoit himself has been out there, that King Philip has been seen out there, that Anawan has been seen out there.
A friend of mine is the one who actually introduced me to the Freetown State Forest and Profile Rock. Had what he called a Native American sighting. He thought it was somebody dressed in, Indian garb going to do something, and the guy disappeared. And I learned about that in the early 80s.
And we actually had one of our first, I guess, viral spooky South Coast things that happened when we first started doing this show. Yeah, we were out there, and we went out there to kind of mess around and take some photos. And actually, if I remember right, was it the same day that we went to the Freetown Historical Society? So we went there first to take some photos and just kind of checking it out and looking around. And we got to the top of the rock, and there's all these little outcroppings. And on one of the outcroppings is just this pile of fresh fecal matter.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to figure out, how did a dog get its legs on this little tiny outcropping? And then we realized, no, it wasn't a dog.
Yeah.
It would have had to have been a human being hanging over the other part of it, which, by the way, I don't care, if I'm being dared, if I'm drunk, what have you. I am not putting my back to, what would you say, 30 foot
40,
high?
Yeah, 40 foot straight down.
I would not put my back to a 40-foot drop and bend over to take a dump onto a rock. I think the vertigo alone would be too much for me. But we couldn't quite explain how it would have gotten out there, so we put up a photo of it on our old message board. Which, if you ever want to check it out, just go to SpookySouthCoast.com and use the Konami code. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. If you go to SpookySouthCoast.com, plug in the Konami code. You guys know what that is. If not, look it up. Then you'll be able to access the former message board, which is a treasure trove of stuff from 13 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see, we put up the photo. I don't know if the photo's still there because I think the website we used to use to host our images went down a decade ago. But we refer to it as the paranormal poop. And it became kind of a thing. And people wanted us to make T-shirts. We almost decided to rename the show. No, I'm just kidding about that. Although it's not too late. We still could.
No, it's what it's become.
But the message board is always fun. And there's a lot of stuff up there about Profile Rock. So, go to SpookySouthCoast.com, plug in the Konami code. And you know what that was. You used to use it when you're playing Contra and all those games. So but that's kind of what we're talking about too, with the idea of you only have to have little tidbits of the truth for this actual legend to pop up. So we have this legend that's been created about Profile Rock based on the fact that people say that it was a Native American being Massasoit in the profile. and the fact that that rock would have been around during King Philip's War. So when you have those two factors, that alone starts to give you enough to start building this story. So we don't know if the Native Americans actually used that. There's nothing that I've seen that's historically proven that was the case. It's just the story that people tell. And I know, and I've referenced this before, but I've already come under fire from some Wampanoags for sharing some of these stories on the air. That they don't really like me talking about their history and their legend, but, I will keep doing so until somebody from their tribe decides to come on and tell the stories.
Yes.
Because they say it's not my story to tell, and they're right. But the history has to be shared. So that's just one of those things where just a little bit of that can start to foster an entire history. So the real question then becomes, how much do we need to be truthful? I always want to be truthful.
We always want to be truthful.
But how much of it do we have to be tied to? How much of it has to hinge upon the history when we're checking out certain places?
Well, number one, a lot of the stuff we're not even really truly sure what the real history is.
Right.
So,
especially when it comes to, say, King Philip's War.
Right.
We're finding out to this day that there's stuff that we don't know or that we've been told incorrectly about King Philip's War because, history is written by the victors. And in our case, the victors had good reason to not want to promote the truth about the Native Americans because and what we did to the Native Americans. I say we, being
pejorative,
the European settlers that were here at the time. But they would have a reason to want to keep some of that stuff under wraps. And then you get the work of somebody like Nathaniel Philbrook, who, love him or hate him, people have different points of view on his work, but he's brought a lot of stuff to the table about King Philip's War and about what it was like to be a Native American dealing with that and the way that, they felt like the natives kind of fought that war the way that they would fight any war against any other tribe. Whereas the English were supposed to have, these rules of engagement that they would follow if they were fighting any other enemy, but they would abandon those because they felt like the Native Americans weren't worthy of that. And then you want to add into the mix that you have Native Americans who became the praying Indians that had converted to Christianity and were joining up in arms against their brothers. Like there's a lot that's going on with that, and a lot of that is stuff that we didn't know 30 years ago, 20 years ago. It's stuff that's been coming out as more and more people have dug deeper into what King Philip's War was. I've said it before on the show. I had never heard of King Philip's War until we started doing this show because I wasn't taught about it in school. And part of that was because the school curriculum didn't spend a lot of time on history pre-1776, U.S. history. And
they briefly touched the French-Indian War.
You get a little bit of stuff, but we never talked about King Philip's War. We never talked about, the truth about the Pilgrims. We got the sanitized, Plymouth, Massachusetts tourism campaign version of Pilgrim history. And so, like, for example, not a lot of people know the truth about Squanto. They feel like Squanto was this great benevolent presence that was there to help the English and extend his hand in friendship. But Squanto wasn't some Native American that just happened to be walking along the beach when he saw the Mayflower show up. He had already been kidnapped and taken to England as a slave.
Yes.
So he'd already been to England. He knew who the English were, and he knew what they were all about. So when he saw the ship coming, he knew they were trouble. And now as we've gone over more and more history, it finds out he probably was working as a double agent for Massasoit. That he was there to kind of, he was helping them, but he was also gathering information to bring back to Massasoit. So these are all things that we found out as we have continued to go on with history. And with that, we're seeing fluctuations and changes in some of these legends. So then now do we have to change what the paranormal aspect of it was because we know more about the true history? It's hard to separate one from the other because we make these automatic leaps in logic that, things are related. How many times have we heard people say, "Oh, well, I've visited the Mayflower before and felt a presence on the Mayflower."
It's a reconstruction.
It was built in the 1950s.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't a presence on the Mayflower. It just means it's probably not a pilgrim. Especially since the Mayflower probably was never even in that spot. But we got some calls here lined up. Let's pop them on. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you?
The Mayflower, too, was built in the 50s.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't seen or heard anybody talking about it, but I've been thinking about it since yesterday as I looked more and more at those pictures from the Profile Rock from that photographer from Florida Herald.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible, or has anybody brought it up where you were talking to on the official level? Lightning?
I didn't see any kind. I would assume even lightning would leave some kind of burn marks on the rock.
Oh, tracks. Yeah.
But I don't.
On an unrelated but very serious issue, the accident last night in New Hampshire. Well, just before 8 o'clock tonight on Route 18, just north of Walnut, where the lights are there at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Single motorcycle, male in his mid-30s. Real bad scene. I went down there and I lit the first candle. Some people said they were giving him CPR before the ambulance even got there.
Well, we don't. Yeah, I mean, Phil, you know, we don't want to bring any unconfirmed reports to the air, but we do have an email.
Prayers, yep.
We do have an email into the police department to find out more information to get something on an official level.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing the info and thank you for putting out the good thoughts and prayers. Hopefully it turns out well. You as well.
Have a good weekend.
You too. And we just got to be careful when we're on the air with information. There's been a couple of accidents that have happened over the course of the weekend. Just stay tuned to WBSM.com is what I'll say, because we're waiting for some official word on a couple of things, and we will update it. That's what happens, though. You know, this time of year, you know, it's summertime. We usually have some things that go on the roads this time of year that we have to be careful with, especially today with, you know, the wet weather.
Yeah.
You know, the storms that kind of just came out of nowhere. That second wave that came through.
How'd you like all that lightning?
Yeah. Well, the first lightning I slept through. Like, I heard the thunder, and but I was on my couch napping, so I didn't really. But the second storm that came through was pretty intense, and it was, you know, just a 10-minute thing, which, you know, I tend to like those storms. You know, I like those ones that just come. I wish every hot summer day would have a thunderstorm that happened in the middle of it to break up the heat and humidity before the evening comes in. But that also causes problems. You know, like this accident could have been wet roads that could have had something to do with it. Again, I don't want to speculate. We'll wait for the official word.
Well, if you want hot weather interrupted by punctuated thunderstorms around mid to late afternoon, Florida.
Yeah, I don't want to live in Florida. I visited there for 2 days. That was enough. I mean, I might go back again next year for the broadcast again, but you know, I'm not looking to relocate to Florida.
Yeah, I had to go down there every month for training things for a number of years.
And surprisingly, you never turned out to be Florida man in any of those news reports.
Nope.
So
a Florida man was
a Massachusetts man that was staying in Florida. Ate a bath bomb and chewed off somebody's face. There's another call on the line. It may be Lamone. I'm not sure.
It may be.
Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast.
Hey, how you doing, pal?
Good. How are you?
This is all about supernatural stuff.
Yes.
And everything, right?
Yep. Paranormal talk.
My mother lived in a house here in South Dartmouth. Her boyfriend was he used to work for the steamship authorities. He was gone for maybe 3 days at a time. And I went over there one night, and we're sitting downstairs. This particular house was set up. It had a downstairs and had it upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting downstairs with my mother having a cup of coffee. And I hear this upstairs like boom, 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 like somebody's running upstairs. I says, Mom, did you hear that? She says, yeah. Oh, yeah, I did. She says, that's my little friend. She keeps me company when Arthur's away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my mother, my wife at the time, she wasn't my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend. And she says, "Si, did you hear that?" I says, "Yeah, I did." And we went upstairs, and there was just one particular door. I don't know why it was set up this way, but it had like cage in front of it and stuff like that. And my wife told me one day, she says, "You know what?" She says, "I saw her." I says, "You saw who?" She says, "I saw her. I saw her, the one that's been running around all night." And she said she looked like about a 13-year-old girl with like a long white fraggly dress and stuff like that. I says, "Oh yeah, she did." And I'll never forget that as long as I live.
And you said the door had a cage on it?
Yeah, it had a cage on it.
Like bars?
Yeah, with like something that you would lock somebody into.
But it was the door going into the room.
No, it was upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
It just had this particular door on it. And I don't know if she was locked in there or what she was. And I didn't see her, but my wife saw her. My wife said she was about 13 years old, 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old. And she had this like this long, friggly white ground on and stuff like that. Yeah, but it was really kind of strange because when you're downstairs and you're trying to have a cup of coffee with somebody and you hear somebody upstairs like running like bam, 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 bam. So I'm like, "Who? What is that?"
So I just want to go back to the idea of the door for a second. So you said so it was the door that led to the upstairs?
No, the door was upstairs.
So the door was upstairs.
Yeah.
But what was on the other side of the door?
What do you mean by that?
Like you're saying there was a door with a cage on it. You mean it was just a door that was like sitting there again, like leaning against the wall, or was it a door to another room?
No, it was a door just leaning against the
So it was probably a door that might have been on another room at some point. It was just being stored upstairs.
Okay, well, what about the running and when you're downstairs and you hear this running like across the second floor story, like bam, 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 bam.
My thinking is the same thing of what you were thinking is, at some point was this spirit, whether it was when she was alive or even after, were they trying to use that door to contain it?
Right.
Well, my question is, what happened behind that door?
Exactly.
Why,
Right. I mean, that's where I find it to be interesting because, like you were saying, was this girl kept locked up somewhere?
Yeah, I think so.
What I'm wondering is, was this spirit kept up locked up somewhere? Did somebody know about this?
If she was a spirit, then apparently she was kept up there, locked up behind that door.
And then somebody took the door down, and now she got loose.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out what room she was kept in, and put that door back on that room, and then maybe you won't hear that noise anymore.
Well, I'm not there anymore, but I'm just telling you my experience. That's all.
It's very interesting, especially because, like we say, we don't know if it was either way. It's terrible if they kept a living person locked up in a room like that. But
yeah, and my wife saw her. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend, which became my son's mother. But something happened to that girl, and they locked her behind that door, And then I kept hearing this. Like I went over to visit my mother, and she was like, and I'm downstairs. There was a downstairs and there was an upstairs. And it was right here, right in Dartmouth, right on I think it was Stackhouse Street. And I'm sitting there with my mother, and I'm hearing this like boom, 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 like somebody running across the top stairs. I'm saying, "Mom, do you hear that?" She says, "Oh yeah, I hear it." She says, but my mother took it lightly. She was like, "Oh, that's my friend. She keeps me company." I says, "Oh, really?"
Well, thank you very much for calling in and sharing the story.
Yeah, well, it was. She said it was like a little girl, about 13 years old, or something, or so like that, with a long white gown, and I guess that was a spirit, you know.
It sounds like it. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Have a great night.
You too.
And, of course, the phone lines are always open at 508-996-0500 if anybody else has had a similar story. But you get where I'm going with that, Moni, is like, yes, it might have been that they kept a living girl locked up in that room, which would be horrible, but maybe they also tried to use that as a way to kind of contain a spirit. Now that that door is taken down, that's why you're hearing this thing run around upstairs.
All right, there's a house that we investigated. Ooh. And we've still been going back and forth there, the Sam West house.
Mm-hmm. I just saw Katie last Saturday.
Well, one of the stories being that there was a young girl that was kept in one of the closets up there. Okay, as she was, this is, like I said, again, whether this is actual history or this is just lore.
Yep. So the story goes.
Right. This is where this comes down into. The story says that a girl was kept in the closet area because, back in the day, they used to have people that had mental illnesses and mental disabilities. They used to shut them in, which is unfortunate. Thankfully today we have much better treatment, but back then that was something they did do.
Right.
This is not disputed. We know they did do stuff like that. Now, is this really what happened and why there's somebody, haunting the third floor of that house? But yeah. So what this guy's story is saying is it's not unheard of.
Right. And I think that we hear stories about that too, where if you make a change, that can cause more activity to happen. So maybe even if it wasn't so much that it was containing a person or a spirit, just the act of taking that door off, whoever did that, could cause an issue. And I think we probably have more stories like what that gentleman just shared from this area than we'll ever know. Because we've been doing this show for 13 years now. And in that time, we've probably taken maybe less than 100 calls from people that actually share their experiences with us about what goes on. Now, we've heard more when we've been out there, actually giving lectures and talking to people and doing events and all that, just being out in the community. But that's a small percentage of the amount of people that have heard this show over the years. I'm talking on the local airwaves. Not just the matter of with the podcasting and with the kind of the international audience that gets to hear the show on the internet, but just looking at the local audience, you would think that there would be more stories of people sharing more stuff like that. And I think part of that is we're talking tonight about the legend and the history kind of separating itself from the paranormal, or it can be separated from the paranormal. We have all this great history in this area, but there's almost a purposeful suppression of the paranormal around here.
Oh yeah, you're dealing with old swamp Yankees here. They don't...
Swamp Yankees is part of it. Some of that Puritan ethic, some of that Puritan mindset remains.
Yep.
We also have the Portuguese culture, which they don't want to talk about that stuff.
Nothing to say.
And we have we have a lot of European settlers in this area that will talk about it, but will feel like it's bad luck to talk about it, or that will feel like it is, they don't necessarily look at it as being a haunting. They look at it as being, other type of entities, not dead people. Whether it be, I've said this before. In Ireland, you have the leprechauns. Here you have the puckwudgies. Are they really that different? They're and other cultures have similar things to the puckwudgies. So we have like a real, for lack of a better term, melting pot here of different cultures and different belief sets that are all mixing together and are kind of all pushing themselves down onto these paranormal stories. And I think with the rise of the Bridgewater Triangle through the documentary and more people talking about it and the work that we've done here on the show over the years on it, I think through that and through paranormal television shows and more paranormal media, we're starting to see people become more and more comfortable about sharing these stories. But we still haven't really gotten a lot of, like, the reports here. Instead, what we get a lot of are like, you know, people that are telling us, well, my house is haunted, but I think it's my grandmother. Or my house is haunted, but, you know, we know that it's the former owner. There's not a lot of the historical side of things that we're getting enough of here. And if you talk to somebody like, you know, Lou Ann Jolly, who's out there investigating all the time with Whaling City Ghosts, they're finding those stories.
Right.
They're finding those instances in their investigations, but it's just not something that people are either aware of or are talking about. So that's part of the problem that we have here is that, and the other thing too is, we have a tendency, and I don't know if it's just a New England thing, if it's just a South Coast thing, or if it's even just an American thing, or if it's something that happens worldwide. We have a tendency to kind of make up history. Like, we make stuff up with no verification and kind of let that ride. Like what we're talking about when it comes to kind of figuring out the paranormal side of things, we just do that straight up, even if there is no paranormal activity happening. Like, everybody in this area that has a basement that has a weird section, or like something that might have used to have been under the stairs when there used to be stairs over there,
Isn't
but now the
that
stairs
where
are moved.
everybody buries their bodies?
No, that's the Underground Railroad.
Oh, yeah.
Every person seems to have these connections to the Underground Railroad. Now, it's possible because you would have had a lot of homes that did have Underground Railroad stops, because you couldn't get them as you're ferrying people through the Underground Railroad. You know, you can't have 2 or 3 or 4 miles of open travel. So you would need to have a lot of homes that would have that possibility. So it's entirely possible that it's true. But there's people that are out there perpetuating that without having proof that their house was part of it. So just anybody that has a weird section of their basement, which might have at one point been where they kept coal, or where they might have kept wood, or maybe they just had to reinforce something, and so they put up an odd beam somewhere, or you know, there's all these different reasons why it could be why it is, but everybody jumps to that Underground Railroad conclusion. So it's just part of what we're talking about here, where the story can sometimes just be a story and not have any factual basis. We are just about out of time for this week's show. I just want to let everybody know, remind everybody that coming up in a few weekends, it'll be the Ocean State Paracon, July 13th and 14th. If you want to come out and check it out, then all you have to do is go to riseupparanormal.com and you can get your tickets in advance. It's going to be a phenomenal event. It's going to be for a fundraiser for, I believe it was Friends Way was the name of the organization. I just don't have it in front of me. But it's every year the Ocean State Paracon is designed to raise money for some different charity that is Rhode Island based. So that'll be happening in a couple of weekends. You can come on out and see that great lineup. Rise Up Paranormal to get tickets. And then also coming up in September out in Western Mass, the Mass Paracon will be happening. And if you go to massparacon.com, you can get all the information and the tickets there as well. But they just made an announcement. Not only am I going to be there, not only is Stephanie going to be there, and other great people like Jeff Belanger, John Tenney, John Zaffis, all these great folks that'll be out there. But they just announced this week that Scott Porter will be part of it as well. And the new season of Haunted Towns just debuted last night. So you can come out and talk to Porter all about that coming up in September at the Mass Paracon. So go to massparacon.com to get tickets for that. And then the other thing I want to make everybody aware of, next week on the show, we're going to be joined by some special guests who just had a big announcement today. Some folks some paranormal investigators who made a pretty significant purchase. They bought the Conjuring House. And they made a page for it on Facebook. A Conjuring House Facebook page, which leads me to believe that they're planning on having investigations and events and things like that happening there. So we'll get the inside scoop on that coming up next week. We'll find out more about the Conjuring House and what the plans are for that and how this all came together because I'd be interested in hearing the story about how the sale happened, how it was even proposed, what all the ins and outs were of making this deal happen, and then what the plan is going forward. So we'll talk about that next week here on the show. If you want to get in touch with us at any point during the week, spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com is the email address. You can follow us on Twitter @SpookySC. You can follow us on Instagram @spooky_southcoast. And of course, you can follow me on social media @Tim Weisberg, pretty much everywhere that you can follow somebody. That's where you'll find me @Tim Weisberg. You won't find Moniz on social media because we can't get him to do it, but
I still have a Netscape email address.
That's all right.
What does that tell you?
It works good on your Motorola Razr phone. And I'm just kidding. The Razr is way too advanced for him. And then we also, you can find Stephanie and Matt Costa on there as well. So until next week, we hope that you all have a great week. Until then, for Matt, for Stephanie, I'm Tim. We want you all to stay spooktacular.